So it is my delight to welcome our chair, Emma Rhines, and our first panel, Building Social Value. Can we give our panellists a round of applause?
I don't want to tell anyone how to suck eggs, but let's just give an overview of social value. So, gone are the days that you can just build anymore. Right now, at design and planning stage, you have to show how you're going to give back to the local community, the local economy, and the local environment. And that's what social value is all about. So we've got some questions for the experts over here that we're going to have a little look at. So firstly, as I said around social value, a lot of people sometimes don't understand, especially if they're younger, what that means. So can you share one real life example where delivering social value has genuinely made a positive difference? Do you want to start?
Yeah, that's right. Thanks very much. Okay, so social value for me is it's not what you do when you're there, it's what you leave behind. So I'm a civil engineer, worked in construction for more than 25 years, and we do things in and around the area that we're working. But yeah, I think it's what you leave behind. So I worked in the Olympic Park doing bridges. Obviously, Olympic Park, I think, is quite a good legacy project because I'm saying everything, a lot of the structures, the swimming pool and velodrome and thing, they're still being used, and there's a park and it's accessible for everyone to use. So things like the Olympic Park leaving that legacy, the transport link's been upgraded. I think that's a good example of social value being left behind, plus the jobs it's created. So yeah.
I'm Jane. I've worked on many projects in the city, and I think exactly what you said. It's about the legacy that's left behind. I think when we're going and when construction companies are going into communities to build, and we know a lot of Birmingham, there's very tight-knit communities, and they've already got their own problems within the community. To see constructors coming in, ripping their streets apart, it's always an emotional time. If we can show them what the benefit's going to be, and we can help them be part of that, so they have an ownership of it. And I always use the analogy of dad walking past with the kids on Sunday for a little walk and going, I built that, son, I built that. And I think one of my memorable ones is working with Moda and John Sisk, and they built a high-rise block at the bottom end of Broad Street, which sort of leads on to Ladywood. And across the 3 years of that build, we had over 300 local residents that in some shape or form were involved in that. So they either did some training on the site, with RMF were on that site, they got jobs on that site, and I'm talking from cleaners, cleaning the apartments when they were built, to actually engineers. The target was to have 8 apprentices across the building, and we ended up getting over 24 apprentices because the hunger was there. People wanted to take part in it, and it was all through the social value piece. So it wasn't just going on Indeed and looking for a job. It was actually linking in with the community organisations, with the training provision that was funded by the Combined Authority, and it was drawing the whole of the partners together to make it work. So I think for me, that's what social value is.
Thanks, Jane. Hi, I'm Connie. So my view is probably slightly different. So we run a national apprenticeship programme, and part of that apprenticeship journey is the apprentices will go into their community and they will do individual projects. So they go and seek them out themselves. So we may go to projects, put in new kitchens, new bathrooms, we might paint, so we get the apprentices to really understand their own community, understand the social values within that. And it is so powerful because they come out of that project really with different views, different thought processes, and can't wait to sort of tell their family and beyond about what they've done. So that's what we believe supports our programme with social values.
Thanks, Connie. My name's Hannah. I'm coming at it from a slightly different point of view. I work for a large consultancy organisation, and so social value for us actually means utilising our employees, making sure that we're giving back to not just our immediate community where our office is, but also in the projects that we're working on. So utilising the volunteering days, we've got 3 volunteering days. Can we get out to our local communities? Are there local charities that need our time? Can we paint a fence, build a shed? We're all experts. We should be able to put a shed together. So it's about, giving back from a corporate point of view, as well as construction projects. Andy mentioned Smithfield earlier. I'm honoured to be working on the Smithfield project. So from a construction point of view, it's actually about listening to that existing community. A lot of the time we think that we're the experts, but actually they're the ones that have been living there for many, many years, generationally, and they can tell us what's going to help them or what they're lacking, and can we get a skills centre on that site to bring them up and along the journey so that they can live in that area again and they've had a hand in building it. So, for me, that's proper social value.
And of course, I'm going to put 2 pence in on Wimvic. So I just want to say as well, what's really important is we write social value plans and try and put them, but a lot of the times things can shift. So I was on Peddymore, there was a huge economic shift. We had the cost of living crisis and we had the energy crisis all hit. Wimvic, with our clients, sent out 1,000 energy vouchers to the local community in community centres. And then we also, JKM Motors, they went bust. They were having thousands of JKN, yes, sorry, Jane. And we went in and had a chat with them and said, what can we do? And we partnered it with a company then known as Phoenix Training. And we went in and we worked around their shifts and we give them their forklift driving licenses back because they were actually owned by the business. And then we also trained them up in just basic CS cards. It meant that when they were actually made redundant, they could walk straight back into employment. And I think that's really important, is making sure that you can change, because you can make the best of plans, as we all know. The councillor nodding over there, absolutely. But things come into play, and there's always things like shifts. And I think that's really important in social value, is understanding them shifts into play so we can really help them communities that we're working in. I want to touch on apprenticeships, especially because we're working a lot with young people. So I want to hear about, we hear a lot about apprenticeships. I definitely think that they're really good routes into construction. Do you think they're really helping people to get into construction? And what could we do to make them even better? Do you want to? I'm going to send to the apprenticeship expert over here.
I think we are helping young people into construction. I think, we do an apprenticeship programme where, they will come into our programme not really understanding or knowing what construction means. So, and by the end of it, they can install kitchens, bathrooms, they can do tiling, they can do flooring, they can do plastering. So it's a huge project that they undertake. So I think absolutely we are making a difference. I think the struggles with apprenticeships are that we don't necessarily tailor the apprenticeship around the individual. So, we will do a standard, we will work alongside a standard, and I think many companies, individuals will expect that individual to work alongside the apprenticeship rather than the other way around. Whereas, we tailor it to the individual. So we really get to understand that individual very early on before they even start their apprenticeship. We want to understand and learn from them how they want to, go through this journey with us. And then we will tailor our apprenticeship programme around them so that, they are successful and they feel like they're being successful throughout the whole programme. And I don't see that enough. I think we absolutely, when we say apprenticeships, we just sometimes put that under one umbrella, and actually we need to branch the apprenticeships out into the individuals. Definitely.
I would just add to that I think there's the level of consistency is just not there. And I know it's difficult, and I know SMEs are going to struggle. They struggle with actually the whole administrative side of it, of getting the apprenticeship up and running. So I would like to see more help with that. I think it's just the routine, most definitely. And when it works amazingly well. Santina's here, you know, perfect example. Another apprentice is in the room. So I definitely think we need to be doing more, but I think we need to be doing more to help like the SMEs achieving it.
Just to add my 2p's worth as well. Apprenticeships, I think if I had my time again, I did a straight degree. If I had my time again, I would probably do an apprenticeship, a degree apprenticeship or something, because there's such immense value in, let's say, learning, earning as well, and it's the application of what you learn into the real world. I think what we could do better is, I think, not say beyond apprenticeships. We obviously, apprentices need the support, they need the guidance, need the training. There are good apprenticeships, there are bad apprenticeships, there are companies who are just ticking a box. Not to be a bit controversial, but there are companies ticking a box, putting people on apprenticeships and then palming them off to subcontractors, say, and they're there to learn. They're not there to as let's say cheap labour. Which a lot, I've experienced quite a number of apprentices that don't really learn, and they're there just to do the grunt work, the donkey work, which is not what they're there for. They're there to train. I think beyond apprenticeships as well, it's for the people who've actually chosen construction, is to have the opportunities beyond it, because you do the apprenticeship, you've got skills, but then nobody's going to employ you. I think we, as an industry, need to be better at picking up that talent, the people who want to work in the industry. We need to capture that and give them opportunities, really.
So I think you're absolutely right around SMEs. I think, I talk to a lot of SMEs that say they have an apprentice, but they're not actually on an apprenticeship. So they will just class them as an apprentice. And that individual will not go through any qualification whatsoever. So I think you're absolutely right. I think what I would say is we're really proud of is, our apprenticeship is only 18 months long. You're not going to learn all of that skill in 18 months. So at the end of the 18 months, once they've graduated, they still stay under our umbrella as a business. And we continue that growth with them over 2 to 3 years. Now, they become self-employed carpenters or bathroom installers, and then their earning potential over that 3 years is about 80k. But actually they wouldn't earn that if they didn't get that additional support. So I think, that sometimes equally individuals will think, well, we've supported that person through an apprenticeship, they're now qualified, and they just expect them then to go on and be successful, and that is not the case. You have to continue that support afterwards.
I'll let you do that. Do you want to do the next question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things though that is really good that's helping us is actually we were a bit weary when they first came out. It was T-levels. And we're actually finding that absolutely fantastic to get young people even younger into the sector. We absolutely love them. They're basically a couple of years interview process, and they will go into our then apprenticeships. So we had 60 young people walk through our door last week to be assessed in apprenticeships, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have 25 plus going into September. So very passionate there about getting young people into the sector. We touched on SMEs there, so I am going to ask this question. Smaller businesses can sometimes find it harder to get involved in big construction projects. What support is available to help them, and what more could be done to help SMEs? Yeah.
I would say I'm the best person to answer this one. I worked for over 25 years for the biggest tier 1 contractors, and about a year ago I set up my own consultancy, so I've gone from really big to really small. So I would say the barriers. I think the industry for SMEs, just the amount of paperwork. Okay, so the paperwork that you need to fill in, the insurances and everything. I think you're filling in that paperwork as if you were a bigger, you know, big tier one contractor where you don't have that set up. So I think as an industry, you know, to have a simpler path for SMEs with less onerous paperwork, which, you know, I found having gone from one to the other, it is quite daunting. And had I not seen the vast amount of paperwork before, you wouldn't know how to deal with it as an SME to get on those, you know, bigger contracts. I think that's what I found. I think
I'm finding it really encouraging because I'm finding that more SMEs are getting and understanding social value, and they're actually seeing it as their tool to get in on a supply chain. So sitting in the council, the conversations we have with developers, with tier ones, because that's where the targets and the commitments will sit. But then I know companies like yours, Emma, pass that down through the supply chain. What I also know, and there's colleagues and professionals sitting in the audience that are working with candidates, and we know that they're probably not going into the tier ones, they're going in through a supply chain. So if it's through the labour agencies, and we've got labour agencies here today with us, and I spend a lot of time speaking to those, and they do understand social value, and they understand why it works and how it works. And the thing is, they have been doing it without realising they're doing it. So they're taking candidates in, and what I love about the construction industry, going back to Santina's question earlier, it's the fact that it's a non-judgmental industry. So when we're working with groups of ex-offenders, we're working with groups of our care experienced young people that might not have all the soft skills, it's an industry that are opening doors and still letting people in. And so at the bottom end, at the lower end of the scale, the SMEs, they're doing that. They're doing that because we're seeing people giving people opportunities. So I'd argue that they are finding it, they are making it happen. Does anybody want to add to that?
So I guess a different view from myself, from an SME. So we, you know, I think we do need to support them more. I think they really do struggle to understand the roots from an apprenticeship perspective. So we do support our SMEs within our communities by giving them the levy from us, but equally my team will then support them along the journey with that apprentice, so that, you know, they haven't got all the paperwork side of it. We can support them with all of that, but then, you know, they're so passionate about helping their own community, trying to understand social values themselves, because I think they realise that actually they need to grow in that sector. So I think, you know, we as a business have absolutely got to do the right thing by our SMEs and support them in that journey. So yeah, we're very passionate with that.
Yeah, I'm coming from a different point of view as well. So on LinkedIn, I get quite a lot of messages from people who are floor fitters, or they're carpenters, or they're painters, and they're saying, oh, you know, we want to work with Ridge, and it's barking up the wrong tree almost. So it's an education piece about I can't influence a main contractor to take you on as part of their supply chain. But actually what I can give is my time back to you to explain how it works, and maybe who's looking, or, you know, who's had someone go bump, so they do need a floor fitter. So I think we've got a responsibility, if we know the construction industry really well, to give back to those people. Don't just ignore those messages, go back to them and say, actually, this is how it works. And, you know, Overbury are looking, or, you know, CISC need help on this, or they've started this new project, maybe get in with them. You know, like you say, they are open to new opportunities and to helping people. So I think it's just, yeah, we've got a responsibility to connect them to the right people.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing point, actually. And it's all going back to, I think, what Andy said earlier. It's all about pathways, and whether that be a young person trying to get into a job role or an SME trying to get into a tier one contract, it's understanding how do they do that. It's the how. And sometimes I think that's missing. We have these amazing opportunities, but are they getting expressed or shared in the right way? So I think that's really, really important point. So when construction projects are happening within the local areas, how do you make sure that the people live there are actually benefiting from them? Jane?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on this earlier. So within if you know me, I've just moved back to Birmingham City Council, and Amanda and the team have set up the Building Birmingham Skills Partnership. So what we're passionate about is making sure that everyone that is within the sector, in whatever shape or form, has got a voice. So we're making sure that we're speaking to all the relevant partners, that we're all coming together, so the community groups are able to explain to us what their community want, that they're doing that pre-employment work with the local residents so that they are ready for the industry. We're working with the further education, higher education, helping shape the curriculum, because we know as the council what's coming down the line in terms of what's being built. Andy's mentioned Smithfield. We've got so much sitting ahead of us within the city. So it's important that the people that are training the future people know what they need training on. I know for a period everyone was getting the ride on roller and forward tipping dumper, but not coming out with any jobs. So we need to look at what work is coming down the pipeline. So we're making sure that there's young people ready for that, and making sure that those conversations are happening so that everybody can get involved. Everyone can put their ideas forward and their experience forward so that we are making it happen.
Yeah, I mentioned Smithfield is big word today, isn't it? But we're rebuilding the market, the Bullring market, in the plots that I'm working on, and we're about to go into design on that. And we were thinking, right, okay, well, we've got to build market stalls, and we've got to, do they want a canopy? Like, who are we to be dictating that? How about we go out to the community and the market traders and we say, right, how big does your stall need to be? How much storage do you need? Where do you put your bins? It's about involving them in the process. They won't understand what you're talking about when you're talking about REBA stages and stage 2 or whatever. That doesn't mean anything to them. But if I said to them, how big do you need your stall? How does it work? Show me how it works. Get in there. That's what's important. So we're actually creating a design team of the market traders so that they input into that design, because it's not up to us to dictate what their future looks like. They're using cash at the moment. We've got to get them onto a card system. We've got to bring them on that journey. We can't just slap it to them day one and say, off you go, trade. So it's just about bringing people onto that journey and finding innovative ways, getting them involved into the design. There's stuff that they can influence there, and I think there's more opportunity for us to do that on other construction projects, even resi and stuff for the local community. If it's social housing, how do they want their waste to work? How are they entering their building? What does access control look like? Just asking them, really.
I think, as I said, that's really important, and I'm so glad that we are seeing it right from that design stage more and more now. And I think one big word that I will say when it comes to community is trust. And that is, if you listen to them and you say you're going to deliver on something, you best deliver on it or give a good reason why you're not. Because I think it all just come down to that trust. And as Jane touched on, we can do the training, but if there's not the jobs there, and then you go, well, do you want to go on to this training? That trust might have been gone now. Well, why should I go on to that training? You promised me this one, there's no jobs. So I think it's just understanding that and looking at what's the end goal, what's the outcomes of this when we do it, to make sure that, there's a full thought process there, and we're not just delving in and also I think it's all about that active listening, and making sure that also it's not just sometimes the person that shouts loudest in the room is not always right. So to make sure we get all them voices, as Jane has said. So I think really it's just looking ahead. So over the next 10 years, so say we're going into, we'll be 9 if it's 2035, what do you think good looks like in the construction sector if we're really helping and supporting with social responsibility? You want to go?
I'll have a go.
You bet you wish you didn't sit right next to me
I
now.
know, I should have sat at the other end. Okay, so for me, what does good look like? At the minute, I think Errol mentioned it earlier. At the minute, when you say construction to people, they think it's hard hat, mud, boots, manual labour, long hours. Hopefully in the next sort of 10 years, we're going to be seeing construction in a different light, with the roles that are available. If you want to be a drone pilot, if you want to, you can be a lawyer, you can be a graphic designer. There's so many different opportunities within construction that aren't seen currently. I'm a civil engineer. I did do the whole really advanced maths. I think there's two types of engineers. I don't think you don't need the level of maths that I did to do what I did, because I haven't touched a calculator for 10 years now. But I think, there is a space for it. But I think the maths that you need can be taught if you're working on site. If you want to be a structural designer, you do need that complex maths. But I don't want people thinking that they can't come into an industry because they're not good at maths, or they can't do something, or they never study construction. I think everyone has transferable skills. So I think for me, the narrative on construction and what the assumptions are will change to allow more people into construction. Last week I had a conversation with psychology students, and they said, so what can I do in construction? Mental health is a huge thing in construction. Human behaviour, psychosocial skills, and they're all needed. People understand. Engineers, we're technical. We might not understand so much about human behaviour, although we're learning. But I think there's a space for that, and understanding, the value you bring as well. I think for me in the next 10 years, change the narrative.
Slightly different angle for me. What good will look like. This is good. So more of this, that's what will look good. What will look good is that when you go onto a construction site, you see more black, brown faces, more females, more kids from the inner cities that have got an ownership for building the city. I think Andy touched on earlier, it's people that build. And what we need is more of the diversity. That's what I'm not seeing. I can go onto a site and see a lot of diversity on the grounds work, but when I go into the offices and when you get into the higher professions, I'm not seeing it. So what's going to happen? I mean, I'm over 60. I probably should have retired by now. All these people that are holding those positions will have gone, and what we need to see is our young people moving through. So what would look like good is that the pathways, the routeways are there, that people feel that there is a space in the room for them, a space at the table, and they belong there, that they see that they can relate. So that's what good looks like for me.
I sort of echo from a diversity perspective. I think, it would be amazing to see that diversity across the board, and also to see more role models. I think our apprentices speak a lot around, I don't see enough role models, so I didn't actually know that I could come and do this. And so, we're trying to get behind that with our apprentices. We want them to start becoming that future role models for that younger generation. And I also think, for me, construction needs to be broken down for everyone to understand their roots in. And if we can start breaking that down, then I think more people will feel and have the appetite to come into construction. But definitely diversity, and I think mental well-being as well is huge, that we just don't touch on. We think everyone is okay. So that's a huge build.
Yeah, I think the fact that we're on a construction panel and we're all female, it's a pretty good day today. It never happens. So yeah, echo all of that. And I think from an on the ground sort of construction, social value and construction should be happening with communities instead of to communities. And I think I would like to see a bit more of that, a bit more of the inclusion around them, and listening from us to the communities instead of just concentrating on, getting the buildings built. From an apprentice and graduate point of view, I probably shouldn't say this sitting in a university, but probably more apprentices, more into consultancies. In Birmingham office alone, we have 20 disciplines. So there must be so many opportunities, but we can only offer, one or two or three, because from a large consultancy point of view, for the first 2 years, we can take no income for those apprentices and graduates, because they're learning, and we're not going to sort of charge a client for that. They're listening more than they are doing. So I think it's just about, can we hedge the funding a little bit so that we can provide more spaces, because we have 6,000 applicants and 20 spaces. So the want is out there, but are there the spaces? So I'd love to see a bit more balance on apprentice spaces, if anything.
And then I suppose finally, we couldn't go into 2035 without touching on AI. And I think it's doing wonders for the construction sector because it's making people panic because they keep going, oh, there's going to be no jobs, but there's going to be loads in construction still. And I think that's true. But what also it's bringing is a lot of innovation. And that's great. It's bringing more quality, more health and safety. It's bringing faster, more effective ways to work, and hopefully easier ways to work, which young people need to recognise. But they also need to recognise that them jobs will still be there in 10 years' time. They're not going anywhere. So I think that's really important, is that job security as well. So I'm going to leave it there. We were a lot faster, and I'm going to have to love you and leave you all very quickly because I'm going to have to run and go deliver a workshop to 15 children now. But honestly, I just wanted to give a big round of applause to our experts here. Some fantastic answers there.